I taught myself to code, just to stop being afraid of the dark. It sounds like a joke, or maybe a line from some quirky TED Talk, but it's the truth. My name is Nancy Carter. I'm 64, divorced, and I live alone in a 2-bedroom rental just outside Portland. A few years ago, I didn't know what a game engine was. Now I make horror games in my basement. This video isn't about chasing dreams or going viral. It's about what happens when the life you built quietly falls apart and you find yourself wide awake at 3 a.m. asking, what now? After the divorce, I moved into a small, quiet apartment. The kids were grown, my ex-husband was gone, and the background noise of life had stopped. For the first time in decades, I could hear everything. The fridge humming, the floor creaking, the clock ticking like a hammer. It wasn't peaceful. It was empty. I didn't know who I was without the motion of other people, without someone asking what's for dinner, without errands, without noise. I wasn't used to being alone with my own timing. It felt like I'd stepped out of my life and into a waiting room, but no one ever called my name. I kept the TV on for company, but even that felt fake. The silence didn't just surround me, it stared back. It crept in, slow and almost polite. I still had people, texts, check-ins, birthdays, but the hours in between stretched out wide and flat. I wasn't mourning. I wasn't angry. I was just untethered, like a balloon slowly losing altitude, not crashing, just drifting lower and lower. I'd make tea, sit down, and forget I'd made it. I'd open a book, then reorganize the pantry instead. It wasn't sadness, not exactly. It was more like watching your name fade off, a list you didn't realize you were on. People still cared, but life was moving forward, and I wasn't sure I was still part of the picture. I hadn't lost anything all at once. I just gradually stopped feeling seen. At first, it was a few restless nights. Then it turned into a pattern. I'd lie in bed, eyes open, heart racing. Not from fear, exactly, but from something murkier. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of fading, of becoming someone whose days ran together. I wasn't living. I was passing time. At 2 a.m., I'd watch old shows I didn't even like just to drown out the static in my head. But even TV started to feel hollow, like a laugh track with no real people behind it. I missed structure. I missed urgency. I missed being needed. Mostly, I missed sleep. The kind that comes from knowing your life still makes sense when you wake up. I tried books. They made me restless. I tried gardening. It felt like keeping myself busy for no reason. I even picked up knitting again, hated it. I needed something that pulled me out of this low, numb fog, something I couldn't do on autopilot. One night, for no reason I can explain, I typed how to make a video game into YouTube. Not because I had a vision or a plan, it just sounded foreign enough to jolt my brain awake. I watched a video, then another, and something stirred. Not excitement, not purpose, just friction, the sense that I was finally pushing against something instead of sinking into it. The first few days, it felt like reading a language I'd never seen. Unity, assets, scripts. I paused every 5 seconds and scribbled words I didn't understand into a notebook. I'd rewind a tutorial 3, 4, 5 times. Trying to make the screen on my laptop do what the voice said it should. I didn't feel smart. I felt clumsy, slow, out of place, but I kept coming back. There was something soothing in the way these strangers, 20, maybe 30 years younger than me, explained things like it mattered that I understood. And slowly, without meaning to, I realized hours had passed. Real hours. And for once I hadn't been counting them. I'd sit at my dining table with my laptop and headphones, pretending to browse recipes if anyone walked by. It felt silly. even a little embarrassing. What was I doing learning about shaders at 64? I couldn't explain it without sounding like I was having a late-life crisis. But underneath the self-consciousness was something steadier. Quietly, without telling anyone, I was chasing the feeling of being mentally awake. I wasn't trying to start a new career. I just needed something to pull me out of the gray space I'd been living in. Something difficult, something alive. Coding didn't care about my past or my age. It only asked if I could solve the next problem. And for the first time in a while, I liked having something I didn't already know how to do. It was just a square moving around a gray screen. You used the arrow keys to steer it. When it hit the edges, it bounced. That's all. But the first time that little block reacted the way I told it to, something cracked open. I'd watched so many tutorials, made so many tiny mistakes, and suddenly it worked. My heart jumped. I actually teared up. Not because it was impressive, it wasn't, but because I'd created something from scratch, something new, even if it was simple. It wasn't the game that mattered. It was the proof that I could still make things, not just maintain, not just remember, but make. I hadn't felt that in years. It was clumsy, yes, but it was mine. Not the kind of fear you get from horror movies, not monsters or serial killers. I mean the fear that shows up when you're alone in the dark, too old to call it childish, too alert to ignore it. The fear that starts as a whisper. What if no one notices you're gone? That fear had been living in me for years, I think, under the surface. It came out at night when sleep wouldn't come. The silence stretched too long, the shadows too deep. I'd imagine nursing homes, flickering lights, a bell ringing with no one to answer. It wasn't entertainment. It was memory, future, and imagination colliding. And somewhere in that unease, the game began to take shape. Not fantasy, not escapism, but something more intimate, more honest. A horror game that didn't rely on jump scares, but on the real fears we carry into old age. What if your mind slips before your body? What if the people who promise to care for you stop showing up? What if you're in a room full of others and still feel completely alone? Those questions stayed with me, circling like crows. I didn't want to explain them in words. I wanted the player to feel them, to walk through that fear with me, to understand that the scariest thing isn't dying, it's disappearing piece by piece while life keeps moving around you. The game would be set in a care home late at night. You play as the only nurse on duty. Everything looks normal at first, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, things start to shift. The halls stretch longer than they should. The same newspaper shows up in multiple rooms. Residents write notes that don't make sense or vanish before you can respond. The fear builds not from violence, but from disorientation. I wanted the player to feel lost in time. I wanted them to wonder, is this a ghost story or a memory? Is the building haunted, or am I? It wasn't about creating a scare. It was about making space for the fear we usually bury, the kind that never really leaves. I named it that as a joke. Nightshift Carehome sounded like something from a bad TV procedural, but the name stuck because that's what it became, a night shift. Every evening, I'd sit down at my old laptop after dinner and lose myself in code until the sky turned gray. I still couldn't sleep. But now the insomnia felt less aimless. I wasn't lying in the dark, haunted by silence. I was building something, a world, a question, a story wrapped in shadows. It didn't fix the fear, but it gave it shape. I stopped trying to distract myself and started listening instead, listening to what scared me and letting that fear speak through pixels and broken light. There's a myth that learning something new gives you energy. What it gave me was exhaustion. Code would stop working for no reason, or so it seemed. I'd watch a tutorial, follow every step, and the screen would stay stubbornly black. One night, I deleted a folder I shouldn't have, and 3 weeks of progress vanished. I cried. Full, ugly, red-faced crying. Not because of the code, but because I felt stupid, out of place, old. But the next morning I typed into Google, how to recover deleted Unity files. And I started again. Not because I believed in myself, but because the alternative was going back to nothing. I'd never posted in an online forum before. The idea of it made my stomach knot. I imagined some teenager laughing at my question, calling me grandma. But I was stuck on a bug I couldn't fix, and desperation won. So I posted. And to my surprise, someone replied. Then another. They were kind, precise, patient. No one asked my age, no one cared. They just wanted to help. It felt like entering a new kind of room, not one where I was invisible, but where I didn't have to explain myself. I wasn't the odd one out. I was just another person trying to make something strange and broken work. That was the word my daughter used. Cool. Like I'd bought a leather jacket or joined a band. I knew they didn't fully understand what I was doing, how much of it was tied to loneliness, to late nights and quiet dread. But suddenly we were having different conversations. They asked to see what I was working on. My son joked about designing monsters. For the first time in years, our relationship wasn't just about holidays or check-ins. It had new contours. Not deeper, necessarily, just different. And that difference felt like a small light in the fog. It was a mess. The lighting was off. One of the doors wouldn't open. The text glitched in half the rooms. But I finished it. I exported the build, wrote a short description, and uploaded it to a free indie game site. I didn't tell anyone. I just watched the download counter like a nervous parent at a school play. For a day, nothing happened. Then someone left a comment. Creepy atmosphere. Reminds me of that feeling you get visiting your grandparents in a care home. That was it. Just a sentence. But it meant everything. Because it told me I wasn't alone in this fear. Someone else had felt it too. Within days of posting the demo, I started seeing numbers go up. Slowly at first. A few hundred downloads. Then a few thousand. I didn't know where they were coming from until someone sent me a link. A teenage streamer in Germany had played it on YouTube. He screamed at the elevator scene, exactly where I'd hoped the tension would land, and then burst out laughing. I watched it on repeat, grinning like an idiot. Not because he was scared, but because he saw it. He got it. My strange, quiet little game had made it all the way across the world and somehow found someone willing to sit in the dark with it. By the end of the month, the download count hit 70,000. That's not a blockbuster, I know. But for something made by a 64-year-old woman on an old laptop with no formal training, it felt surreal. I kept waiting for someone to tell me it was a mistake. I didn't promote it. I barely understood how tagging worked. I just uploaded it and hoped someone would care. And when they did, I froze. I turned off all the notifications and walked to the grocery store like it was any other day. I bought bananas. It was almost funny how the outside world stayed so normal while something inside me shifted. The emails weren't what I expected. They weren't fan mail. They were stories. People telling me about their grandparents, about night shifts they'd worked in real care homes, about dreams they couldn't shake. A woman my age said the game reminded her of visiting her mother, who no longer remembered her name. A college student said they called their dad after playing. I didn't know what to say back. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was just trying to make sense of my own fear. But somehow that honesty, the raw, unfinished shape of it, made others want to open up too. I'm not an expert in anything. I don't have degrees in psychology or game design. I'm just a woman who stayed up too many nights and needed something to hold on to. And somehow that was the point. The game wasn't polished. It wasn't clever, but it was true. In the quiet, aching way that truth sometimes is. I think people felt that I hadn't made it to impress anyone. I'd made it to survive something. And when you create from that place, not knowing if anyone will see it, not knowing if it even makes sense, and someone writes to say, "This helped me," it stops being about the game at all. I wasn't chasing momentum. I just had more to say, or maybe more to ask. The next game is about memory, not the dramatic kind, but the slow drift of forgetting who you are while everyone keeps calling you by your name. It's a quieter kind of horror. There are no monsters, just a house you used to know, slowly changing shape around you. I don't know if it'll connect the way the first one did, but that's not the point. The point is, I need to make it. Because these questions about aging, about vanishing, don't leave you. You either push them down or you give them form. That word never quite fit. I wasn't proud the way people meant it, like I'd won something or overcome a big challenge. What I felt was something softer, grounded, like I'd been floating, untethered, and finally found a place to land. It didn't fix everything. I still had nights when the silence pressed in, but now I had something to hold, a small body of work that spoke in my voice, even when I couldn't find the words out loud. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. And after everything, the insomnia, the fear, the drifting, that feeling was more than enough. People kept asking how I came up with the idea, the setting, the scares, the mechanics. But the truth is, I didn't set out to make a game. I just needed somewhere to put all the feelings I couldn't talk about. The dread, the shame, the silence. That strange combination of fear and humor that hits you when you drop a spoon and it echoes too loudly in an empty kitchen. Game engines, I learned, aren't just for explosions and quests. They can hold grief and longing and memories that flicker like broken lights. I didn't know code could carry all that weight, but it can. You just have to let it. That phrase used to sit in the back of my mind like a dull ache. Too old to start over. Too late to matter. It wasn't something people said out loud, not often, but I felt it in their tone, in how quickly conversations moved past me. I believed it. I wore it, quietly. But when I finished that first game, and people played it and felt something, that label cracked. Not all at once, but enough. I stopped thinking of my age as a disadvantage, not because I suddenly felt young, but because I realized being older meant I had more to say. I'm not interested in chasing trends. I don't scroll to see what's hot in indie horror. I don't optimize thumbnails or study algorithms. That's not what this is for. I care about atmosphere, about truth, about the feeling that creeps up your spine when a hallway looks just a little too familiar. I'm not trying to keep up with anyone. I'm trying to go inward. That's the real story. Not views, not likes, but whether I can build something that feels like a dream you half remember, the kind that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. People sometimes talk to me like I've overcome something, like I cracked the code to late life reinvention. I haven't. I still have nights where I stare at the ceiling until dawn. I still feel the ache of silence in the afternoons, but I'm not stuck anymore. I don't feel like I'm waiting to be rescued by someone, by circumstance, by some new version of myself. Now I know I can reach for something. I can open my laptop and build a hallway, a flickering light, a whisper in the dark. And even when no one's watching, that act alone is enough to steady me. People like neat endings. The moment where the storm clears and you walk into the sun. That's not what happened here. The game didn't heal me. It didn't fill the house with laughter or bring back the marriage or fix the sleep. But it gave me a ritual, a way to spend time that wasn't just passing time. It gave me rooms to design and voices to imagine, something between a prayer and a puzzle, something quiet and focused and mine. And every time I sat down to work on it, I felt a little less haunted. Not because the ghosts were gone, but because I had somewhere to meet them. I spent so many years believing it was too late. That if I hadn't done it by 30 or 40 or 50, it didn't count. That real creators started young, had credentials, had a plan, but none of that is true. What I've learned is that creating isn't about being the best. It's not even about being good. It's about having somewhere to put all the things that don't fit anywhere else. The ache, the wonder, the odd little memories that won't leave you alone. I wish someone had told me that earlier. That you can begin late, that you can be awkward and scared and still make something honest, something that matters. For the longest time, I waited for someone to say, "Go ahead, you can try." I didn't even realize I was waiting. I just assumed it wasn't for me. That learning to code, building a game, putting something into the world, those were things other people did. Younger people, braver people. People with credentials. But there's no committee handing out permission slips. You just start. Clumsily, privately, badly if you have to. You don't need approval from your kids or your past or even the version of you that still thinks it's a mistake. You just begin. That's it. That's the whole secret. It's quiet. The kind of quiet I used to dread. But now, the hum of the screen feels like company. The cursor blinking, steady and alive. I sit there sometimes for hours, not chasing brilliance, not escaping anything, just being with the work. It's not glamorous. It's not loud, but it's mine. I remember how scared I used to be of nights like these, of the dark, of the silence. Now I listen to it. And sometimes I build something inside it, a hallway, a sound cue, a glitch, something that didn't exist before, something that whispers back. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you of a feeling you've buried or a dream you thought was out of reach, I'd love for you to subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts below. What's something you've always wanted to try, but told yourself it was too late? And have you ever surprised yourself by doing something you never thought you could? And if you're still in that quiet space, wondering if your voice matters, you might want to hear about Miriam. She was a retired librarian who found her voice on a stage at 70. That story's waiting for you next.